Well, for those who are unfamiliar, your pinned tweet says that you are sensible centrism, which involves reducing illegal and legal migration to zero, abolishing hate speech laws, maintaining national sovereignty, purging wokeness from our institutions, restoring the death penalty for severe crimes, and promoting family values, and also reducing the welfare state. Now, if you'd said that 20 years ago, most people in society would nod along with you. But these days, it's basically hugely controversial. So society seems to have flipped its fundamental values completely on its head. And my question to you is, are there going to be consequences for society for changing its values so drastically?
We're already living through them. We can see the consequences all around us. And I have to say, I'm not very impressed with the world that the left has built for us. Just a quick point on the sensible centrism aspect. Actually, if you poll the public, all of those points that I mentioned there are actually majoritarian points. These are the points that most people still agree with. The problem is that the political classes of the West are dramatically out of sync with the general sentiments of the regular person. They simply have a very different and very left-wing perspective on what politics should be. And this, I mean, we should be aware that this was the great project of the left, to essentially capture the political discourse and render certain things out of bounds using political correctness as a weapon. And they've been very successful about this, and we should recognize this and reframe ourselves outside of their paradigm, because unless you want transgender children, unless you want criminals to be treated as victims of society rather than authors of evil actions, then you will always find yourself in the left-wing paradigm essentially committed to these premises, and I'm not committed to these at all. I think that they're completely wrong. I've spent many years analyzing each argument from the left in detail, and I've come to the conclusion that they're all just simply false. They're just wrong and bad arguments. And so I've reframed what I believe to be the correct way of running a civilization into what is actually, like I said, the majoritarian position in our civilizations. Most people agree with what I've written in that tweet. Most people agree. It's radical left-wing activists, extremists, who do not agree with these things. And you'll notice that the policies that have led us away from those positions were all done by people who I would term as extremists.
Well, just quickly on that point, for the generation that claims that it trusts the science, there doesn't seem to be a lot of truth around, and the press are asking us to look at the faces of, for example, male criminals and call them women out of politeness. So should ordinary citizens who want to be, quote unquote, good, go along with this endorsement of ideological fantasy?
Well, this is the big question at the heart of it, isn't it? Is it good to deceive people? Is it good to play into delusion? Is it good to speak about the world in a way that's fundamentally not true? And sometimes you have to be tough and you have to be realistic about things, and that's actually the kind thing to do, because when you build a house on an edifice of lies, it will eventually come tumbling down. And the longer you go on with these delusions, the worse it becomes when eventually they become untenable, and you have to say, well, look, none of that was really true, actually. The longer you feed into it, the more painful it is by the time it all comes crashing down. So I think actually being firm but fair and saying, well, look, actually, this isn't true, and I'm not obligated to commit to it as a truth. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but I am trying to make sure you understand that this is just something on which we can't agree. I think that's something that, again, I'll just call them conservatives, but this is just essentially encompasses almost all regular people in the world. The regular people of the world just have to find the moral fortitude to say, look, I just don't agree. And I'm sorry, you're talking nonsense, and I'm not going to go along with it.